I'm here with Vasu Jakkal, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of FireEye. And I'm really excited to be here with you. A lot of it because I'd met you before. We have a lot of things in common, and just I love your energy and inspiration. And the whole reason of starting this Women in Cyber podcast is really to provide advice, inspiration, mentorship to the women in cyber community. And so I'm really excited about that.
Fantastic.
So before we get started, or as we get started, of course, in cybersecurity, we all know FireEye is definitely the leader, and one of the leaders. And but some people may not know who FireEye is. So what are the 2 or 3 things you'd like to tell people about FireEye?
Great. So first of all, Lorraine, thank you for having me here. I'm thrilled, grateful. There's a lot of work that we have to do together, and I'm honored to be your partner in this.
Good.
And I'm absolutely delighted that you have started this podcast. We need more of that. We need more Lorraines in the world. We need more of this. So I'm thrilled and humbled to be here. So to start off with a little bit about FireEye. So FireEye is a cybersecurity company. We are often, if not always, the first call when a breach happens. So what does that mean? We have the privilege of being in the room when a breach is happening, before a breach happens, and after that happens. And that, coupled with the world-class intelligence that we have analysts in 32 countries who speak many foreign languages, who are on the dark net, who are constantly uncovering what threat actors are up to. So the expertise that we have on the front line, coupled with the intelligence, helps us to know about cyber threats more than anyone else in the world. And that then helps us build great technology to detect, prevent, and respond to cyber threats across the world. So we offer a portfolio of solutions, from services like incident response and red teaming to intelligence, all the way to technology across all the vectors. So that's what we do. We're a very mission-driven company. So we wake up every morning with just one goal: how do we make our world better and safer? How do we relentlessly protect our customers and our communities? And if we advance our day by doing that, then we feel good about it. So that's FireEye.
Good, very good. I like your tagline about protecting against evil. So that
Yes.
says it gets right to it.
That's right, fight evil.
That's fighting evil. So now, just focusing the spotlight on you, you have a very interesting background and very charismatic personality, which I love that as well. But you have an engineering background,
Yes.
Electrical engineering, and you have 2 degrees in that.
Yes.
And then you worked in the semiconductor
Yes.
field for a long time, and then you made the leap to marketing into cybersecurity. So tell me how that transition was. What drew you to there?
It is a very unusual background, cray, some might say. I'll take you to a little bit of my roots to help you understand why I am where I am. So I was born in India, really far away from here, and I grew up with, amongst many things which make me who I am, a great show called Star Trek. And I honestly, at that time, I think I was like 8 or 9 years old, I absolutely was convinced I was going to be in Starship Enterprise. I was like, that is what I'm going to do when I grow up. And that is what really spurred me into technology. I did not know I was born 300 years before my time. Maybe in another life I'll come back and do that. So that's why I chose engineering, because once I figured that I can't really fly on the ship, I thought, hey, might as well build it. So that's why I chose engineering, and electrical engineering seemed like a good place to start. It was exciting, it was new, it was different. And remember, I'm dating myself, but mechanical and industrial engineering were hot fields. It's like, this electrical thing sounds pretty cool. Computers were just coming up. So I chose that, and I loved it. And as you said, not only do I have one, I have 2 degrees in electrical engineering. I got a sponsorship to come to the United States, and I thought that was super cool. So I came here. I started doing my master's with the goal that I would do a PhD, and then I realized, I want to work. I want to get into the corporate American world and contribute and do some cool things. So I came to where else but Silicon Valley, and I joined Intel, who I think coined the term Silicon Valley. So I thought that was fabulous, that I get to be in this amazing company doing amazing things. And the first day I walked into Intel, I saw this big map of a semiconductor chip. I thought I owned the whole thing. So when my amazing manager at that time, he walked me, and I'm like, great, I can absolutely get started. And he goes, yeah, you're going to be working on that little dot in this little picture. And I'm like, what? So much for change the world, right? I enjoyed engineering, I still do, and I think that makes me a better marketer. But while I may have the head of an engineer, actually the head of a strategist, I have the heart of a marketer. I love telling stories. And I've figured that it's really stories which move our world, because think about it, we've grown up with stories. What are stories? Stories are who make us who we are. They make us believe in what we should believe. They make us become who we become. And I realized the power of stories and the power of marketing because I got the opportunity to move from engineering to business strategy, thanks to a fantastic sponsor and mentor. And as I got into the world of business strategy, understanding market movements, understanding what is it that customers really seek, how do big things happen, and working at that time in our mobility group, going on to becoming a chief of staff, and then becoming a general manager, I realized it was really marketing that my heart belonged to, because that was the underpinning of what it means to be a great business. Think about it, right? As marketers, we are the bearers of our North Star. We are telling stories which move and inspire people to do what they want to do, which change the world. Steve Jobs was the greatest CMO that I have come across. We also define markets. We create markets. We are simplifiers of our go-to-market, and we are revenue generators. So that's why I chose marketing, because I believed that that was a great place to be, and I had a lot of help along the way. I had a great CEO, Avi, at LSI, who I worked for. He said, time to get on this CMO track. What are you doing?
Right.
I wouldn't have become a CMO had Avi not told me, you need to get into marketing. You really, full time, you need to do this. And Christine, who was my incredible boss at Brocade, who basically said, you are going to be one, and made me his successor. And here I am.
Very good.
So that was my journey from an engineer in a semiconductor company to a marketer today at Cybersecurity. And Kevin and others at FireEye, they took a bet, and I'm very
so far
honored.
I'm sure for the long term. It's interesting because there must be something in the engineering water, because our CMO, Joel York, is a double major in physics.
Oh, wow.
It was in the PhD program to get a physics PhD, and went into marketing. And so I'm wondering if there's some characteristics, some traits, like in the engineering world. I think I've told you before, my daughter just graduated from university in mechanical engineering. So she's looking into engineering degrees or jobs now, but I'm just wondering where she's going to go.
Yeah.
Maybe she's going to end up in marketing.
I have to meet her. I would love to meet her. And I believe that that's true, because if you look at marketing today, it's evolving really rapidly. There used to be an era when marketing was communications and brand and advertising and really a marcom job. But look at our world. It's all digital. The buyers are making their decisions whenever they want. Yeah. We used to be a very vendor-driven world, right? We articulated the value proposition. We had big ads which communicated. It was the act of persuasion, but it was done differently. It was very analog. Today, we are in a self-nurture world. Everyone's online. They're doing their own research. They want to hear from people like them. They want to really understand the value. That's why alliances and customer success and all of that is important. So marketing today is changing so fast, where 70% of our customers' journey are completed before we even get to know them.
True. And they're ready to buy.
They're ready to buy.
By the time they come to you,
they want you to be authentic, and they want you to say it as it is, and they want to understand, is this the company I bet on? This is why both the emotion and the science and the art really matter. But given that, you talked about physics or engineering, it's digital. And we have, what is digital? Digital is bits and bytes. At the end of it's data. You've got to understand the data. You've got to honor that data. You've got to understand what's behind it. And then how do we really use that to do what's right? right? Because we are in a confusing data era as well, with privacy and security and, our worlds, right? Because we're like, well, privacy and security, but then there's like individualization, but then there's personalization. So it's a confusing world. And I think the marketer who is so used to just dealing with abstract, having the groundings of a physics or an engineering degree, which is very concrete, right? You're like, it's concrete. It helps you navigate that. It helps you understand decision making. It helps you look at the forest and say, well, all right, here are the clusters of the trees, and helps you have a logical breakdown and navigate people. So I think that those types of degrees, whether it's mechanical or physics or chemistry or others, and doesn't matter even engineering, political science, the more diversity is there, it helps us become better marketers. It helps us understand the universe from different aspects. And more than ever, it's a leadership trait. It helps us become better leaders. So
interesting. Yeah. I mean, as you're describing that, I'm thinking of Joel, who's in the, and working with him on a daily basis too. I'm kind of getting into the psyche there.
Right.
So focusing a little bit more on the actual marketing, what do you think is the difference, or is there a difference between marketing into cybersecurity, security professionals, or just marketing to regular software product, or even chewing gum?
Love it, chewing gum. God, if we just could do that, right? So I'll start there, because there is, people ask me a lot about B2B versus B2C, and I'll come to the differences even in that. But there's marketing to the enterprise and marketing to the consumer. And while there's a lot of commonality between them, because at the end of the day, singularity concept has not, I'm a sci-fi geek, through and through, right? So singularity concept has not taken over. We work with humans. It's humans in the enterprise and humans as a consumer. So there's a lot of commonality from storytelling and how do we win hearts and minds. And there are differences, because in a chewing gum world, most of that journey is online. You listen to a great ad, you click on something thanks to social media and e-commerce and digitization, and you buy it.
Right.
So you are really marketing. It's a micro moment that you own with that consumer, and it's a quick decision. It's an easy buy. Right. The bigger the decision. So versus a chewing gum, if you're buying a house or a car, the more emotional. Our brain has 3 regions. I'm going to get a little scientific here. And the outermost region is the rational brain, which is, if I'm buying a chewing gum, it's $1, I'm not going to spend a lot of energy in that decision making. But if I'm buying a house or marrying someone, then, oh my God, that's really personal. And that's your innermost brain. And that's where emotion really, really matters, because we use data all day to justify the decisions we have done, but we've already made that decision a long time back. It's a similar thing in when you're selling to enterprises, because first of all, that journey is complex. Where there's one decision maker as a consumer, you're mostly the one making it. In an enterprise today, there are between, I think the average is 5.5, and it's growing, but 5 to 9 decision makers, right? Think about our decision makers. There's the CISO, there's the CIO, there's the CEO, and then security is a board level conversation. So there's the board, there's the general counsel. There's a lot of people who are in that decision maker. There's the practitioners. So B2B cycles are infinity loops, and there are many, many micro moments in that. And so marketing to that is across that infinity loop is different. Right? It's complex, and you have to understand how do you win the hearts and minds of those people along that journey. Who are they listening to? Where are they going? Who are their communities? Marketing has moved from an atomic level, the individual, to a molecular level, right? To many people in this. And so I think that's the biggest difference when it comes to, hey, for software, I need to understand that. Still use all those great principles, but the buying cycle and decision making is really different. Then coming back to cybersecurity versus software, I think one of the things I realize is, when you are marketing to someone or a customer buys a technology, they want to be viewed as innovators too. So if you're buying, let's say, data analytics, and you buy the premier data analytics, you're proud to talk about it. You're going to be like, hey, I bought XYZ and it's amazing. And here's what it did for me. And I have this amazing data center, I have an amazing cloud. that creates a testimonial, and more people want to hear from more people like that. While in security, you typically don't talk about all the cool stuff you do because you're like, well, let me think about this for a moment.
Right.
I'm going to
sometimes
say.
Also, they're looking at it as a competitive advantage as well. So they're also not going to be out there talking.
Exactly. So they want to be careful because they're like, this is very close to my heart. I don't want to say I have all this, because then there's a whole bunch of hackers and attackers who are saying, well, you know, it's a credo, right? I'm going to prove that wrong.
Right.
Secondly, if they talk about it, there's a little bit of what's going to happen next. Is this going to break? So now that has changed. That is changing. We have a lot of CISOs who are coming out and saying, we want to be innovators. We want to be that. And we love that. We want them to be heroes. But those are differences. There are differences because people do want to hear from people like them. They don't want to hear from FireEye about what FireEye is doing great.
Right.
They want to hear about, well, if you're a banking company, what's Bank of America doing? What's Wells Fargo doing? If you are a aeronautical company, you want to hear from people there. So that's changing, and I think that's one of the bigger differences. The other thing is software is software. It's about technology. Cybersecurity is about humans, technology, and diplomacy. So there are three things that as marketers we have to think about. You still need, in our case, the services component, and it's not professional services, very different. So you have to think about that and the storytelling and what does that mean. Mm-hmm. You have to think about technology like software, and then there's diplomacy. We work with all the governments in the world. We work with people that typically software companies wouldn't work with. We tell their stories. We're there. We go to Congress to give testaments and things like that, right? So that's all together. And so as a marketer, you're looking at that whole universe and you're saying, how do I do great marketing with that? And I think that's one of the other differences between like a pure software and then
This is really good. I know that the people that are going to be listening to this podcast are going to really find that special. So do you feel it's important to actually go out, like you personally, go out and talk to customers to understand really how to be a good marketer in this area?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, at the heart of everything we do as a company, we have to be customer centric because, you know, as marketers, I'll quote this, I think it's from Seth Godin. What is marketing? And he said, I think it's beautiful. He said, marketing is about helping someone become who they seek to become. And I think that's a very succinct and a cool definition of what marketing is. So to do that, you have to understand what they seek to become, and you have to understand their hopes and their dreams and the challenges that they face. You have to really understand that. And I'm not saying, because someone asked me this, hey, if Ford, right, Henry Ford had just asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. He would have never built a car. I'm not saying that. That's completely different. You're not asking them what they want. You're asking them, you're trying to understand their viewpoint on what is it that they face. And then if you're a great innovator, you can take that, like a Steve Jobs, you're going to have strong pulse on that, and you're going to deliver that magnificently in ways that they never thought they could have that. Tesla, another example.
Right.
So I think that you can't do that if you don't talk to customers. And so I love meeting customers. I love meeting people. So I love meeting our customers and understanding, you know, what inspires them. What are the challenges? I love meeting customers who are unhappy, truly. Because if they're pissed, you know, you're going to get valuable insights from them, right? And I love understanding that, because if you bring that humility to the table as a marketer or as a company, you can serve them better, and you can do better, and you can grow your company. So I think I love all of that is an important part of marketing. Secondly, as marketing, we tell stories. That's part of our responsibilities. It's an opportunity to go to the customers and tell the story the way it's meant to be. And today, you know, marketing has two pieces: market and ing, right? There's the big market. As marketers, we have to stop focusing on the ing, you know, this tactic, that tactic, this event, and we have to focus on the market. What are the big movements? So it's Christine's words, right? Yeah. So it's, what are the big movements? How are these big movements having? And customers are part of that market. So without meeting customers, without informing them, I don't think today's marketer can really get the job done. I'm a believer in great stories. I'm also an engineer, and so I'm a believer in great data. There's magic in stories and there's magic in data. And often this may seem as a conflict, because you're transforming brand, you're driving demand. You work with customers on all of it. You work with sales and demand generation. Everyone's like metrics, metrics, metrics. Like, prove to me that story works. I think there is, while it may seem like a conflict, there is a way in which you can bring these worlds together. So I'll share with you how I report marketing success. May not be for everyone, but this is what has worked for us. It's very simple, because I believe at the end of the day, life is about simplicity. You've got to boil it down to the things which matter the most. Influence. And influence is all about storytelling. It's actually, I would argue, everything is about that. Storytelling. What is the world saying about you? What are the stories they're telling about you? And what are the stories that you're telling the world that interest them? Because that's what everyone's listening. That's influence. And you can measure influence in certain ways. Share of voice and share of media are some things, but there's even more ways in which you can measure. That's 8,000 marketing technology companies. They measure everything. But that's like the power of, what are the big change of the world stories that you're doing? What are the things that a CIO or a CISO is looking and saying, I want to be that Avenger, and that story really inspires me? Well, you can measure that in a way through influence. Engagements. That is the bridge between really this world of brand and this world of data. That is the data which helps you understand, how are people engaging with you? Mm-hmm. How are they reacting to the stories that you're telling? Are they sharing it? Because people are not going to share something unless they're moved by it.
We were just talking about that yesterday. And how are we going to measure success of, let's say, this podcast?
Right.
It's about sharing it.
It is, and absolutely.
I look at it as if I know this is successful when people are knocking on my door to be on this podcast, because the information, the stories they're hearing, they want to tell their story and get it out there.
Totally. So today, thanks to data, and thanks to, this is why I feel, my head's that of an engineer, because I think in terms of, it's like the matrix. You can break it down into ones and zeros, but my heart is that of a marketer, because matrix is a story. And so I think that engagement is absolutely the metric of the modern marketing economy. I would argue engagements is the metric generally of a lot of businesses. How are people engaging with you? How are they, and whether it is, look at like Super Bowl and the stories, like Nike, which does a great job. You're sharing it, you're crying over it, you're like, and we can measure all that, right? We can say, how far have you watched the video? What did you do? What was the immediate action that you took from that? So you can measure engagement, and they're a great bridge between the world saying this, here's how you're saying this, here's how people are reacting. And then lastly, it is now the heavy analytics, opportunities and bookings and ARR and business, right? And that's the business side of marketing, where you're like, your marketing is absolutely a revenue generator for the company. How does this translate? What are you measuring? At FireEye, marketing is one of the most disciplined functions. Our CFO always jokes, Vasu has her data before anyone else. I'm like, no. Sorry. But we are just like, here's the data, here's the waterfall, here's what we're doing, here's customers, here's how they're engaging, here's how they translate. We have today technologies which go from the very first time they engage all the way, that very person. So the beauty is that what may seem as a conflict of really how do you measure all this? And there's so much more work to do, because it's hard to measure that. But there are ways in which we can use the power of data to measure the humanity of stories today, and how that really has moved the needle for us.
Okay, very good. So being a woman in tech, as I am, I definitely in the last 25 years understand from firsthand experience the challenges, but we've been successful. Here we are. Do you think that the challenges are worse or more difficult in cybersecurity? Or, just comment on the Women in Tech Challenge.
I'm not sure whether they are harder or easier. I think they're different. And, there's been a lot of progress, Lorraine, over the last, I would say, 2 decades, over the last century. We wouldn't be here otherwise having a conversation. There are a lot of people who took a bet on me personally. FireEye took a bet on me. My CEO took a bet on me, our executive staff took a bet on me. But even before that, right, it took a lot of great leaders, men and women, to pave the road. We stand on the shoulders of giants. And we have a lot of work ahead of us. There are a lot of unconscious biases which play out, which we may not even but people don't realize they're happening because they are unconscious. So I think the challenges are different in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, like many technologies, is very bits and bytes. It's software, it's logical. You have a community which was working on it, and so for others to come into that community and to really, like, let's say women, to make a difference and to get integrated, it's going to take people to open up and embrace that, not just in terms of a check mark, right, but in terms of really including those perspectives. Because again, as I remind people, the hackers are not saying, hey, I'm attacking a company full of men or full of women, and the hackers are not necessarily all men, they are women and men. And so how do you solve challenges when you just don't have the advantage of having that, diversity in perspectives? So that's important. And as women in cybersecurity, we have to be able to understand that. We have to be able to understand the landscape. And then we're going to need great sponsors along the way who help more women get into it, like you and like me, right? We have to do our parts to get young talent as they come from schools and nurture them into it. We have to take bets on women in cybersecurity and help them shine, along with all the other men and along with all the talent that exists. So I don't think the challenges are more or less. I think they're just different. And the reason I say they're different is we're still uncovering some of those, and they'll always be there. There'll be some different, and I don't like the word challenges. I said opportunities, right? Yes. There'll be different opportunities.
True.
So we have an opportunity to really think about that and move the ball forward. Mm-hmm. So I will turn your question into, there's a lot of opportunities that we have, and they're different kind of opportunities.
Yeah, good. That's a good perspective. So I know that you launched your FireEye's Women in Cyber initiative, the program Elevate, last year at CDS, and I was there, and that's really what made me reach out to introduce myself and get to know you. But so what do you want to say to the audience around that program?
Right.
What the purpose is, the goal, what your plans are for 2020, and how people can get involved.
Right. So along with many other women, there are two fabulous women at FireEye at executive staff. Barbara Massa, now she has an expanded role, our Chief of Business Operations, and Alexa King, who is our General Counsel and who is spectacular. And for a long time, we've been talking about, what do we do more? We are very, I feel very lucky to have them because we help each other. I was just in an Elevate webinar, I know you were there, right. And there was an interesting stat. It takes three women in a room to really make a difference. I'm like, yes, there are three women in that room. So we've been talking about, what can we do? How do we help other people get into leadership roles? And so that had been at the back of my mind. And then as we were marching along, there are two fabulous leaders, Susan Daly and John Ford at FireEye, who were bringing up initiatives. So we said, all right, we're going to do something about this. We're going to put a stake in the ground, and we are going to march ahead. So that's how Elevate was born. It was just one day, we are going to do it. We're just going to do it. And the focus of Elevate, because there's a lot we can do, but focus and being specific helps. So the focus of Elevate is specifically around women in C-suite and women in the boardroom. Because if we have more, then the balance starts shifting and we can have more opportunities. So that was the focus, and the mission is really to raise awareness and to inspire and to empower and to get more women in C-suite and boardroom. It's a aspirational goal, but it's one step at a time. So that's what we launched, Elevate. It was fantastic. We had a lunch there. We had the CTO of Lululemon, we had City of New York, we had Amazon on a panel. And what I love about these women were they shared personal, human, amazing stories about how they got there and what they can do. So that was a great beginning. And then we have some webinars and activities. And, a call out to anyone listening. If you're interested, please join us. Send us a note, send Lorraine a note. She's part of Elevate. Send me a note. We'll get you there because together we're stronger.
That's really true. And we've talked about internally at my company, too, that we want to collaborate. And
Yes.
we've been talking about doing a Women in Cyber program for a long time and talk about the idea here at this meeting and that meeting. And I'm like, hey, we've got to do this. And then when I was at CDS and I saw you on stage and I went, oh my gosh. And I came back and said, we have to collaborate with you. And that's what it is. It's we're stronger, together.
Yes.
And so I'm glad that we're, working together.
And we'll have fun.
We do, absolutely. So yeah, I can tell that you've got a really light spirit. And when you were walking me through the marketing department, you were just having a good time and really enjoy what you do. So what do you? Okay, two questions that are kind of off the working path. If you were a superhero, what would you be?
My favorite question.
I mean, if I look at it from a superpower, not so much a superhero, but I would like to have the ability to teletransportate myself anywhere. So I could see my friends in Spain, or I could do that London meeting, and then I could come back and and then I could take my dog with me too, so I wouldn't have to find daycare for it.
Right. If I was a superhero, what would I like to be? I think I would like to be a mind reader.
Ooh, yes, that would be good.
I would
that
love.
Would be dangerous.
That would be dangerous. I would love to understand what people desire, and how do we help them with that? And I would love to understand if people have biases that they're not even thinking of, and how do we solve that?
And it's funny because when we started, you were saying, I'm just direct, and you tell people you're having a biased opinion right now or a thought.
Exactly.
So that would help.
That would probably not go really well, but that would be a backfire of the superpower. But no, I love superheroes. Along with sci-fi, I love superheroes, Justice League and Avengers, and I think we need all kinds of superpowers. For the longest time, my superhero was Superman. I love Superman because he can do multiple things, and we grew up with that. I do think we need a lot of superheroes to change the world, and actually I think there's a superhero in each of us. We just have to uncover that, right? And we have to empower that and nurture that, and then nurture each other's. But yeah, I would love to read minds, and I would love to understand what's going on there.
So I know you have a long commute to work, you work long hours, but when you are not working and you're not in CMO mode, what do you like to do?
Oh, what do I love to do? So I love spending every moment I get with my kids. I have 3 kids. I have a 14-year-old daughter, teenage years. It's always interesting.
Yes, it is.
I have a 9-year-old son who is still in very much dinosaur land. So I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot having a boy. And then I have a 6-year-old fur child. So I feel like I have one of each, right? He's a golden retriever. And by far, he's the most excited when we come home, like by a long shot.
That's right. My dog too.
So I love, I love spending time with my family because my husband and I have known each other since we were 16 years old. We've been friends for all our lives. So doing just things with them and hanging out. Other than that, what do I love? I love dancing. I know it's one of those things, but I used to, believe it or not, I know people are like, really? I used to compete at a national level as a dancer.
Interesting. What kind of dance?
I learned classical Indian and then just, all kinds of Indian varieties of dance.
So you were in competitions in India?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
great.
And I loved it. I love choreography. It used to be one of those releases.
Yes.
So I used to love doing that. I've not been able to do too much of that.
The costumes must have been fabulous.
They're fabulous. So it's like musicals, right? We used to put together musicals, and it's really fun being part of that. And then I also love reading. I love reading. I love science fiction reading. I love reading and watching movies and really understanding that because I feel that inspires me, that teaches me. I'm a big believer in the growth mindset. My mom told me when I was very young, and these are the most important words, you can be whoever you want to be. You have to decide and you have to believe. And I think books help me, or movies help me say, well, I want to be that. And it helps me articulate who I want to be. So I love reading as well.
Right. I know that belief and that kind of thought process was really important for your kids too.
Yes.
I mean, I have 2 adult kids, and when they were little, as they were growing up, I would tell them they could be anything. You're a superstar. I didn't want to be one of those moms that did nothing wrong, but because they did.
I mean, my son wanted to be, when he was 5, I don't know whether he was just saying this because he was like testing us. You never know.
Right.
And they go to a Montessori system, so it's really different. But he came and one day he said, when we went for his first parent-teacher meeting, he spent the entire 30 minutes. This was my first PTA, where, it was a conference. He was just polishing a boot the whole time, like 30 minutes. Kids were doing science projects and math, and I think it was 5. He just polished a boot the whole time. and I'm sitting there, and he's diligently polishing the boot. And I said, sweetheart, do you want to show me any of your other projects? He's like, this is the best project. This is all I do when I'm in school. So do you polish boots? He's like, yeah. And then he wanted to be in janitorial service. He loved sweeping the class. And his teacher then gave us an insight. She said, he's just trying. He's just testing us. And I said, then he came home. I said, you are going to be the best janitorial services ever. You should absolutely do that. Embrace that. We're going to be amazing. And for like a year, he was sweeping my house every single day. So I believe that, great. You want to be the best sweeper in the world, like unleash that potential, right? So I agree with you, like be whoever you want to be, right, and be happy and be the best in that. Because when you really want to do what you love, that you're unstoppable. You're right. Unstoppable.
Well, I know your kids see that in you, and they're always watching,
Yes.
So you're an amazing role model, I'm sure, for them.
Thank you. So are you.
So, okay, one last question. So you're at Starbucks. You've got 2 minutes. Somebody walks up to you and says, wow, Vasu, you're an amazing marketer. I'm trying to get into that field as a woman. What advice would you give her?
The first advice I would give her is send me an email. I would give her my email address, and I would say, send me an email with a short description and tell me what you want, and connect with me on LinkedIn so I can help you. That's the first thing I would tell her. Secondly, I would tell her is marketing is so wide. So help me, and this is why I said send me an email, is what in marketing do you want to do? And help me understand that, because, or you might say, I just want to be a generalist. So that's what I would give her advice, but mostly I would tell her, absolutely. It's a great field. You should get in it. You should do it. And I'm going to help you get there. That's what I would tell her.
Perfect. That's great. Well, is there anything else that you want to mention that we didn't talk about today? Or
I think we covered a lot, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity. I would just leave it with marketing. And as leaders, right, it's all about hearts and minds. It's about winning someone's heart and then minds. And when you do that, growth follows and a lot of opportunities follows. We touched on a lot of subjects today. We touched on cybersecurity, we touched on marketing, we touched on leadership and personal life. But that's what it boils down to. Because if we do not figure out how to do this, we're going to have a world which we don't like, and then we are going to be unhappy. And we have to do our part. Many times I feel people are just saying, well, I'm going to wait for this and wait for that. And as much as I believe in magic, I grew up in the land of Enid Blyton before Harry Potter, and I love Harry Potter. Much I believe in magic, and I believe in fairies and elves. There's no one coming and helping you. You have so much power in yourself to do what you really want to do. You've got to do that. We live in a world of abundance. However, we stop listening to each other. And if we can embrace that versus embracing in a world of scarcity. And as women, and since we're talking about women in cyber, many times women come and say, well, there's only that much, right? And if I want to be part of that, then I need to do that. Not at all. Open up. There's infinite possibilities. And when you change your purview from limited to infinite, you're going to make different decisions. You're going to embrace, you're going to inspire, you're going to elevate people, right? So I think my parting words, if for what it's worth, is do that, be that. Leadership is about helping someone become who they want to become. It's about, if people look at you and they say, wow, I feel great about myself, you're doing your job. And if we can do that, and if we can elevate women together, if we can be that voice, if we can do more podcasts, and just by listening to us, people feel, I can change the world, I think we've done our jobs, and we have helped really narrow the divide that exists today. And there is a big divide in every single aspect. So I know you're for that, Laureen. I certainly am. And I know together we will do our part in advancing that. Because for the sake of our daughters and the sake of our children, I want this to be a better world.
Very good. Well, there you have it. Marketing and life advice from Vasu. Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Thank you.